We'll start by taking things back to last Friday. Between this show and last show, we've been chronicling each and every Wednesday night here on the Carolina Weather Group the status of the government shutdown, and we've received at least one question online of, why are you guys talking about politics? And we're really not interested in talking politics, but we are interested in how this affects the weather community. So during that 3 to 4 week shutdown there, you'll recall that the National Weather Service and its employees were working throughout the country without pay. That has now been resolved, because you'll recall that last Friday we got the news that the government would be reopening after both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, came to a spending bill that will buy us at least 3 weeks of spending for the government. So we're beginning to hear from those in the weather community, including this guy, Derek, who is a meteorologist, that his first paycheck has shown up. He tweeted this out here saying that his first paycheck since the middle of December deposited 6 weeks of stress lifted off of his shoulders. So we're happy to hear that our friends at the National Weather Service across the Carolinas and around the country now have that behind them. We'll wait to see what happens on February 15th when this round of funding runs out. But for now, we're back to operational status quo at the National Weather Service. A question for Scotty or the rest of our panel. When we all came back on Monday, the first business day since the government formally reopened, did you guys spot any pieces of technology, any services that were back up and running that maybe you had missed since 2018?
For me, it wasn't a big deal. There were a few websites that I click on. There were certain links. I can't remember exactly what they were. Once in a while, I'd come to a link and it'd be like, okay, this is shut down. You can't access it. I was like, okay, guess I won't be doing that this time. For the most part, it seems like majority of the stuff actually stayed up this time versus the past, where I know Moss data went down, a couple other things went down.
We use here on our weather show the EDD that National Weather Service puts out, the experimental data display. And at one point that went down for what I presume to be government shutdown reasons. And we'll be using that later on in tonight's broadcast when we're talking about the wicked cold that is moving across the country. We'll be showing you some maps from that. And that's just a tease ahead to coming up at the start of our 9 o'clock hour. We'll be talking about this cold snap. At least 8 people so far, unfortunately, nationwide, we're learning, have died because of these frigid cold temperatures that are well below freezing in a lot of parts of the country, Scotty.
Yeah, and James, you were asking, I guess the biggest thing that I was able to notice is a little bit more communication in our NWS chat. I know that things were kind of limited throughout the past couple of weeks with our folks in Greenville, South Carolina, wherever your local weather office is. So that was nice to have them back into a more full capacity. But Melissa, I'm sure you and Corey used a lot more information from NOAA that you're probably relieved to finally get access to the data that you need.
Yeah, it was a huge relief to get access back to information from the National Centers for Environmental Information, which is actually housed up in Asheville, North Carolina. It's the archive for all of the data that's collected by the National Weather Service primary stations and also the cooperative station network. So being able to get back to that climate data and some of the other products that they do. I mean, they put out a state of the climate report every month to let us know what the statewide temperatures, the statewide precipitations were, the records. They do a lot of verification on this data, and we hadn't been able to access it. So I will tell you, it was a slow going once the servers finally came back up, just because everybody was trying to get all the data that they'd been missing for the last few weeks.
Yeah, I would say they couldn't have picked a much worse time to shut down the government, coming right at the start of a new calendar year, because of course that's when we do want to look at all that past weather data and climate information that the National Weather Service offices provide. At our office, we're also working on doing some evaluation of existing NOAA products like the Evaporative Demand Drought Index. So those are offline for a little while, but fortunately it looks like things are back up and running, and we'll hope for another good resolution before February 15th.
Hey, James, I thought of another thing about the government shutdown. We actually heard from one of our shows that we had scheduled in January. We actually heard from Ben Minot. He was with the USGS talking about how sorry he was he missed our show. So we were able to reschedule him, and we're going to be able to reschedule our Hurricane Center guests as well. So that was also a good thing. We were able to reestablish our contact with some of the shows that we had to cancel, unfortunately, due to the shutdown.
That is certainly good news. We look forward to bringing you those shows in future weeks.